somebody called me to say, you're no longer good enough and your dream is over. So I got there only to finally no longer be a baseball player, but I wrapped up my identity into what I did, not who I was. At that time, I was fearful, so fearful. And I didn't even know that I was fearful around money. But I'll tell you what, as I started to learn how money worked, a lot of my fear around money started to sort of dissipate and sort of drip away, because I recognized that my fear was not about the money. My money picture didn't get better. As a matter of fact, it actually got worse for a while. But my internal state around money, my emotions toward it, my stress toward it, it got significantly better. And I remember laying in bed thinking to myself, how do I feel so much better about my money when I'm in the worst place I've ever been financially on paper?
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Kitchen. Today I've got a very exciting guest for you. I've got Matt Morizio, and he's going to help us with an uncomfortable topic, the elephant in the room, the money. Matt says if you change your relationship with money, you change your life. So I'm so excited to have you here, Matt. Building true wealth in your second act. I think that's fitting with everything that's happening with AI disrupting people in their workplaces. Happy to have you here, Matt. Let us know who you are and what's your mission.
Gosh, thank you for having me. What a cool intro. I appreciate that. My wealth management firm that I founded is called Reconstructing Wealth. So right in the title, I'm not trying to hide my mission, which is to change people from the inside out as it relates to money. I found I am case study number one for most of this. I speak my truths mostly. And my truth is that I've learned as my relationship with money changed, not the amount of money in my bank account, my relationship with money has changed. And as that has changed, my entire life has changed. I'm more present with my kids, more present with my wife, kids, which I have 7 with an 8th on the way. So I have a lot of children. And I've learned that sometimes heavy burden of financial pressure that I carried with me, I didn't even know existed until I started to rewire how I relate to money, how I view and use money. And now, as my life has changed, it's my mission to transform the lives of the people that I touch. And hopefully we can transform entire generations' view and use of money.
Oh, I love that. Congratulations, you got the 8th on the way. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much. God has big plans for my life. Holy smokes.
No, that's amazing. When you were talking about relationship with money and having a healthy relationship, and you said 8th on the way, immediately I thought there's so many people I meet who say, I'm talking about people in a Western world where
Yeah.
pretty much the standard of living is good. And you hear someone saying, I can't have a child because I can't afford to. And then you wonder, is that really true? And that obviously it comes down to that relationship with money. I can't start a business because I don't have enough money. So many things that we limit the way we live our life based on that relationship with money. So I'm excited to have you here. And then you said your case study number 1, which I found your story very interesting. I'll ask you, the day your baseball dream ended. I think that's a moment that not all of us have been on the athlete path. Things are happening in careers and in companies, and AI is coming, and maybe the dream will come to an end. So I'm interested to know from you, maybe you can tell us your story.
Yeah. For those that don't know, which I don't expect anybody to know, it wasn't like I was a big household name. I played 5 years in the Kansas City Royals minor league baseball organization. So I chased my dream. That dream was my 5-year-old boy dream all the way through to my 25-year-old boy dream. But one day, you're right, like I got a phone call during spring training of 2011. His name was Scott Sharp. He's the director of player development at the time. And he did me a favor because I was like a dinosaur of baseball players at that time, being 26 among 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. I had been in the organization for 5 years, which is a very long time to be in the minor leagues of a baseball organization without ever making it to the big leagues. I never made it to the big leagues, but because I had spent so much time there, he gave me the respect, we'll call it, of calling me the evening before I was going to be released in spring training. Normally what happens, like you see on TV, is you show up to the ballpark at 7 a.m., you get a breakfast, you head toward your locker, somebody taps you on the shoulder, says, hey, Scott wants to see you upstairs. and you come back down with a plane ticket and a black trash bag, and you collect your stuff, and you're on a flight later that day home, and that's the end of your dream. He spared me the embarrassment in front of all my teammates and friends of that, and instead called me the evening before to say, hey, you're going to be released tomorrow. Come in later, 9:30, 10 o'clock if you want. You don't have to see all your buddies. They'll be out on the field by then. So I did. And that was effectively the end of the dream. Somebody called me to say, you're no longer good enough and your dream is over. And that was hard because I had worked on that for 20 years and I never quite made it to the very top. Now, I made it in the world's eyes quite far compared to anybody else. And I did play professional baseball, which was the dream. I got a paycheck, a very small paycheck, but I got a paycheck with the Kansas City Royals emblem on it. So I got there only to finally no longer be a baseball player. And here's what I will say about that. I've learned incorrectly, but I wrapped up my identity into what I did, not who I was. So when I was a baseball player, my whole life from 5 to 26, I was the baseball player. And I came from a town outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Nobody was drafted to play professional baseball from there. So I was the baseball player from Waltham. Like that was my identity. Even if I didn't want to have that identity, when I would go back home in the off seasons or during college, I would be known as, oh yeah, you're that baseball player, right? People assigned the identity to me. So it wasn't until that identity was stripped from me, when I was told I was no longer the baseball player, that I realized, oh my gosh, I got some internal work to do because I don't know who I am without baseball. And that's really where I leaned heavily on my faith, because I recognized through that process, which was a hard one, a deep introspective process, that my identity cannot be wrapped up into who I was what I did or who was surrounding me. Yeah, as a young boy, my parents divorced early. So when you're in second or third grade, your parents are that rock. But when that rock breaks, then you have to find something else. So I really poured into baseball quite early because that was the thing that wasn't failing me until it did. So you need something eternal, something that will outlast you, outlive you. And that's where I found like my faith has to be my identity, it has to be who I am. And the rest of the stuff is noise. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. It's part of my calling, sure, but it's not who I am.
Yeah. A lot of us can't even imagine pouring ourselves into something for so long. So that alone is a feat, because a lot of people, we start something and then a few months down the road, it's got a little boring. You start something else, or you start something, you don't get a little traction, and then you move on to something else. So it's amazing to have that discipline to see something through for 20 years. That's really amazing, Matt. Thank you for sharing your story with me.
Thanks for calling that out. I appreciate that.
And then I read the next layer to the story, that you were a newlywed. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. Okay, talk us through this.
Yeah, the season I got released was spring of 2011. I got married fall of 2010. So my wife quit her teaching job. She was a teacher, which that would have been the start of a new school year. She quit that summer prior because we said, hey, let's do this baseball thing together. We don't know how many years we have, but there's not a lot of years in a pro athlete's life, so we might as well see what it's like. So she quit her teaching job summer of 2010, married fall of 2010. Spring training is really like February, March of 2011. So here we are, newly married, heading to Arizona, Surprise, Arizona, which is where the Royal spring training is. In spring of 2011, it was April 2011, I got a phone call to say you're released. And now she's quit her job. I just got fired from my job because released is the kind term of being fired. So I got fired, and we're newly married, jobless, homeless because we don't have a home. We were planning to get an apartment wherever the season took us. So we're jobless, homeless, and while couch surfing basically on families' couches or their spare bedrooms, we got pregnant with our first child. So we're jobless, homeless, pregnant. She's scrambling to find work. I needed to finish my degree. So I was already enrolled back at Northeastern, so I couldn't get work. And then you fast forward to, I completed my degree the next January, technically January of 12. Our first baby's born February of 12. And now I'm the sole provider. Again, we don't have jobs. I have a brand new grad resume, basically. And I'm trying to find work to feed a family of 3. And I'm 27 at the time, never been in the business world my whole life. I'm trying to figure things out. So the real life start to our lives was, man, fast and furious. And if you're doing the math there, that's 2012. Here we are 13 years later, and I'm having my 8th child. And we've moved 5 times maybe in that decade. Life has, if nothing else, life is certain to change. I put it that way.
Wow. I'm laughing because you're telling it to me so comically, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds like a lot.
It was a lot.
I looked at your Instagram feed, which I'll link down in the description. Matt Morizio, find him on Instagram. I looked at your feed of your beautiful family, and your wife looks amazing. Okay, she looks totally amazing. I can't believe that she's had 7 and is going to have 8. I'm like, how?
It's her fault. That's why we have so many children.
You got a real one because she stuck with you.
Yeah, that's true. I count my blessings for sure.
That's amazing. And for so many people, the issue of money in marriages and the conflict it causes, and a lot of times the divorce, and it all boils down to money. You start to build your second act. Baseball is over. Life has come fast. Family is here. What's the relationship with money? Hey, small business family, quick pause here. If you've been listening and thinking, I need help getting clear on my message and how to actually market this amazing thing I've created, I've made something just for you. It's called the Clarity Intensive, and it's 2 focused sessions, one-on-one, where we untangle your ideas, map out your next best move, and build a foundation for real business momentum. If you're done thinking what's the right thing to do, and you're ready for a customized strategy that fits you, this is for you. You'll find the link in the show notes, or you can visit the website www.reinventingperspectives.com/shop, and you'll see our Clarity Intensive 1-to-1 marketing coaching. Let's get back to the show.
At that time, I was fearful, so fearful. And I'll tell you what, I didn't even know that I was fearful around money. It was my default operating system. It was how I knew to relate to money, because I learned it from my mom mostly, because my parents were divorced young. My dad was not out of my life, but I just spent more time in my home with my mom than I did with my dad. It was like with him on every other weekends, but most of my day-to-day was spent in my childhood home where my mom lived. And because society doesn't allow you to speak about money, or just they discourage you from speaking about money, I didn't ever talk about it in my home. So I know firsthand as a parent of 7, so much more is caught than is taught with your children. I was just catching whatever relationship with finances my mom was passing down to me. And quite honestly, knowing that her relationship with her parents, my grandparents, they didn't talk about money. So she caught, when they were alive, she caught whatever they passed to her. And they were products of the Great Depression era parents. So just built in there is this worry, fear, scarcity-based mindset around money. I remember getting yelled at as a kid. Again, I'm in Massachusetts in the winter. It's very cold. We lived in our childhood home that was heated by oil. Oil is expensive. I didn't hear the end of that. I remember being yelled at way worse for not turning the heat down to 58 when I was leaving. Say I was leaving to play outside and nobody was home. I had to turn the heat down to 58. And if I didn't, I was yelled at way worse than, let's say, if I brought a bad grade home or something like that. That was a real no-no, is you don't waste money. You don't frivolously spend or pretend like you had an opportunity to save and you didn't. That was a major no-no in my life. So I just lived with that. And I guess that was just how I thought about money forever. And you know what? That scarcity mindset, to a degree, can serve people. It served me when I played minor league baseball. I made $600 every 2 weeks after taxes. That was my paycheck. And I did that for the 5.5 months that the season lasted. So anybody doing that math, that's sub 5 figures. That was a 4-figure salary, sub 10 grand. So I needed to learn how to squeeze a quarter out of a nickel. So that mindset isn't a bad one. It's when the mindset controls you, you don't control it. That's where you run into trouble. But for me, really up until I was early 30s and I became a financial advisor, I was living and breathing a worried, fearful scarcity mindset around money. Didn't matter if I had $0 to my name or some more dollars to my name. That's just how I thought about money. And I didn't even know there was another way until I became an advisor.
Now, to the person who's listening, who's thinking, how do I even know what kind of a mindset I have, whether it's a scarcity mindset, or I know where we're going, but I'll start with the scarcity mindset. Now, I think usually money has an emotional reaction, which kind of shows you an extreme emotional reaction sometimes, which kind of makes it, oh, okay, what was that about? Was it about the heat, or it boils down to the relationship with money? But I'm interested to know what you've seen.
Yeah, that's really well said. If you want to give yourself a gut check, when you think about pulling up your bank statement or your credit card statement, does that elicit any emotion? If you feel a pit in your stomach or worry or fear or anxiety, that'll give you an indication on how you relate to money. If you make purchases exclusively based off of price and you never consider value or worth when you're buying something, you probably have a little bit of a fear-based mindset around money, a little bit of a scarcity-based mindset. We'll say you have a relationship with money that can grow, put it that way, put it kindly. So I would ask yourself some of those questions of like, when I think about my bank account, when I think about spending, when I think about those things, what kind of emotional response does it elicit? When I think about making major purchases, how do I go about thinking about them? Do I think about them in a price exclusively? Do I think about them in terms of an investment in something in my life? And I would say most of the time, somebody who doesn't know how they relate to money, but they know that they say they're bad with money, money's emotional to them, they're constantly worried about making enough, having enough, wondering if there's going to be enough at some point. All of those are really key indicators that you've got some work to do as it relates to finances.
It's so interesting because previous guest, we had a lawyer who came to talk about setting up your company correctly. And the number one reason he said people don't do that correctly is because they think, oh, it'll cost too much money. So, I'll do it later. You put your whole world at risk. And then we had a lady who was talking about building corporate credit. And people just think, oh, I can't access funding. It's like a mental block. You don't look for solutions because you just think, I don't have it, I don't have it. And all those things, as an entrepreneur, you can see how that can be problematic. Interested because you founded Reconstructing Wealth for the entrepreneurs. That switch from scarcity to abundance.
I want to say first that if you look at my life, like my body of work, I've really never been a poster child for conformity, which helps an entrepreneur because that's exactly through who an entrepreneur is. I chased this ridiculously low percentage dream for 20 years. I have 7 children. We homeschool. I started a business at 40 with 7 children, depending on that income. Like, I completely understand what it is to go against the grain, which is an entrepreneur's journey. So I get all of this. What I'm sharing is coming from a place of alignment. I'm on the same side of the table as you. What really has changed my relationship with money is twofold. And one of them is kind of the long game. The second one has had the greater impact, and it's done it in a faster manner. So the first one is education. I didn't even know that I didn't relate well to money, didn't even understand money until I became an advisor. And I describe it like this, like I learned the language of money the same way I would learn Spanish by being plopped in Spain and said, hey, go live for a month. Like I learned through immersion. If I was living in Spain and didn't know Spanish, I would learn enough pretty quickly to be able to get by in Spain. I was prior to this in finance staffing, which is really a pure sales role, helping people get jobs in finance. I didn't actually advise people on their personal finances until somebody met me and said, hey, I think you have a lot of what it takes to become a great advisor. I would like to take a chance on you effectively and say, come work for me. And now here I am plopped in the role of financial advisor whose job is to help people figure out their personal finances. Yet I had never really learned the language of money myself. So I learned it through immersion. But I'll tell you what, as I started to learn how money worked and like the game of money, understood debt versus equity and buying assets and investments and how all of that kind of happened behind what I thought was behind the scenes, a lot of my fear around money started to sort of dissipate and sort of drip away, because I recognized that my fear was not about the money. My fear was in fear of the unknown. And as that became known to me, I started to worry less about money because I understood it. And then I recognized, like, man, how many of us walk around living in fear of the unknown, thinking it's a fear around money? I think most people do that. They think they're bad with money because they don't have some pedigree in personal finances where their great grandfather and grandfather, they all were economists at Harvard Business School or whatever. They feel like because they don't have that pedigree, they can't understand money and investing. Yet I'm living proof to say that's not true. As I learned how money worked, I started to understand the game of money a little better, and my worries and fears continue. I mean, I'm still a work in progress. They continue to dissipate the more I understand about it. So that's the long game, because as you get educated, the more you get educated, the more you understand, the less you worry. The thing that really has transformed me, and this is to any entrepreneur out there that feels like they're constantly worried about making payroll or where their next deal is going to come from. I'll just speak for me, but I struggled with this illusion of control around my money. And I wanted to control it all. And that's really like a fear-based hoarding, scarcity mindset, not hoarding like reality TV show hoarders type money, but feeling like I need to keep my grips on this money really tightly. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. It's going to fall through the cracks. And then I started to give more. And I gave more, not out of strategy. I gave more because there was this calling on my heart as it related to money, that I felt like I was called to tithe regularly, which is in the Christian world, it's that consistent giving toward the church. I had never consistently tithed, and here I am, early 30s, when I started this process. I never consistently tithed. I knew I was supposed to. I knew I was called to, I should say. Yet in that one area of my life, I was dipping my toes. I would give some month, and then other months it's like the bills are too much. I'm just getting by. I can't give. God understands. And then I would go back to giving. Yet when you hear my story, you hear my journey, like pro athlete, dad of 7, homeschool, entrepreneur at 40, like none of that says fence rider. None of that says toe dipper. All of that says like, man, when this guy goes for something, he goes all in. Except for that one area of really, it was money. It was giving, but it was really finances. It had its grips on me and I couldn't go all in. So I made a commitment to go all in. And I know myself, if I keep it in my own bank account, I'm going to continue the same process of some months I'll give, some months I won't. So I'm going to set up a separate bank account, and I'm going to call it my blessing account. You can call it whatever you want, your generosity account, your giving account. And every time I get paid, I'm putting 10% of that paycheck into that blessing account. And it's a separate account, separate debit card, separate everything, out of sight. It's for other people. It's however God calls me to use that money. And I'm telling you, as I started that process, I really felt way more in control of my finances. Control is the wrong word. I felt way better about my money. My money picture didn't get better. As a matter of fact, it actually got worse for a while. But my internal state around money, my emotions toward it, my stress toward it, it got significantly better, to the point where I was scratching my head. I remember laying in bed thinking like, how am I in the worst financial picture on paper of my entire life? At that point in my entrepreneurial journey, I was working for somebody, but building my own practice. And it was all on me to build it. What I was bringing in was not enough to even feed the family. And I remember laying in this place, like I had maxed out credit cards. I had depleted savings. I was living like a financial nightmare. And I remember laying in bed thinking to myself, how do I feel so much better about my money when I'm in the worst place I've ever been financially on paper? I had to figure it out. So I have some friends who are PhDs in psychology. And I asked a couple of them separately, not together. I said, hey, this is what I've been going through, and I would love for you to like put some words around it, if there is any in your world, because I don't know your world. I just know what I'm feeling. And they spoke in their language, dumbed down for me to understand. But they said, hey, look, here's what I'm seeing happen. And what I'm seeing is we speak in psychology. There's one school of thought that says you have two root emotions. You have a fear and love. And those are the two emotions from which the rest of the emotional tree sort of stems from. You, your whole life, lived in this fear-based emotion around money. But when you started intentionally giving, you started that blessing account, you effectively were rewiring your subconscious without even knowing it, because you started to transition from a fear to the stronger of the two emotion, which is a love-based emotion, freely given. And your subconscious started to rewire to say, hey guys, this is all happening behind the scenes, they're telling me. Again, this wasn't a strategic move by me. This is just what was happening. They're telling me your subconscious is effectively saying, hey guys, remember how we used to really worry and get stressed out about money? Well, we don't have to anymore. We're actually okay giving it away. So we're okay. We don't have to stress about it. We can give it away. We don't have to worry if it goes out. And subconsciously, my emotions were rewired around money through the act of disciplined generosity. That wasn't my strategy. It wasn't a plan. But I'm telling you, it was the most impactful way my relationship with money has changed.
Wow. That's amazing. I can picture that in so many ways. Because for myself, when I had that mindset of, oh, I can't give because all I have is this, and then if I've done my little budget, and then it means that I'm short by this
Yeah.
much, which means I can't give this much, and that inconsistent giving. And then
Yep.
when I started first with the giving and then doing my
Mm.
budget on what remained, I don't know whether it's like you said, maybe it's the release of tightly holding your finances. Something has shifted in me. All of a sudden, everything is just working out. And I don't know if now I can see the abundance, which I couldn't see when I was tightly holding on to the money. You wonder all these things, but it's amazing that the Bible, the Word of God, has all these secrets that you discover, you experience through just obedience.
That's why it works, right? It's rooted in truth. And I want to give anybody listening just an image. Maybe this will help you in your journey. I was gripping tightly. So imagine like tight clenched fists. That's what I was doing with my money. If you, Priscilla, were going to throw me a football, let's say, and hey, Matt, you're going to be the receiver. You have to catch these football passes I'm going to throw you, but you have to keep clenched fists. I would probably look a little bit like a seal trying to catch the ball. And I'd catch some, but I wouldn't catch all of them for sure. And I want you to use that image, but relate it to life and specifically around money. If you live your financial life with tight fists, you can never be in a position to receive the life God has for you because you are too busy trying to control everything. But if you open up your grip a little bit, you are now positioning your heart, yourself to receive the life God's created and called for you. You can't, by definition, control your life, control your finances, control the thing, be in the driver's seat, and also walk his will and his plan for you. So you have to be willing to open up your grip and be a river with your money. Don't be a reservoir. If you're willing to open that grip up, I'm telling you, like you said, it works out. Like somehow this is all working out. God continues to show up and provide, I guess, because I didn't budget for it initially, and now I'm doing this, and the train keeps going down the tracks. This is great.
The power of the truth of God's word. It's amazing. I'm mad to founders, entrepreneurs who are listening, who are like, okay, I'm listening, Matt, for my business. How can I apply this to the way that I do things? There's a lot of entanglement, your relationship with money. So many things about how you build your business are related to that. Do you see price? Do you see value? Do you invest in yourself? All these things come together. I'm wondering from your perspective, if you could just give the audience of entrepreneurs some ways to think about these things.
Yeah. The first that I think about is your intent. Understand your heart. If your intent is to positively impact the lives you serve, whether it's a service or a product, whatever you're creating as an entrepreneur, if you know that's what you're doing and your intent is to positively change somebody's life, that's what we're all doing. Even if you're selling pencils, you're trying to make somebody's life better by the pencil you sell, then you can sleep easy no matter what you charge, because you know your intent is not to just selfishly gain. Your intent is to change. If your eyes are on the customer, if you want to speak in entrepreneurial language, if your eyes are on the customer and not your bank account, you're going to be in a good spot. You will do well as a business if you're aimed to serve. The other piece, and I have to remind myself of this too, so any entrepreneur out there that's building a business, working price changes, trying to say, am I too high, especially a faith-based entrepreneur? Am I gouging? I don't want to gouge customers. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to overprice and pad my own bank account. This isn't what it's all about. But at the same time, I am a business. I need to earn profit. I need to run competitively. I think that you have to think of your earning and your business in terms of providing value as opposed to charging dollars. If you think money, we'll zoom way out here, money is nothing more than an exchange of value. Back in the day when the world didn't accept US dollar as the mode of currency, and it was more commonly accepted to trade spices and golds and cattle, like the decision to make a trade was really a win-win negotiation. It was like, I think that in exchange for 3 sheep and 7, I'm making this up, 7 ox, like I would take 50 pounds of salt and some gold, and yeah, that's a fair value for me. Then the deal was done. Today, you fast forward and the world accepts dollars as a mode of currency, as a value, a medium of exchange. Then all you're doing to people when you're creating a business is hopefully providing more value than you ask for in return. To bring this home, if you're mowing lawn and you say to somebody, you ring the doorbell. My son's 13, he does this. He rings the doorbell and he asks somebody, hey, for $20, can I mow your lawn for you? It might take an hour and a half or 2 hours, let's say. And that person that answers the door may say, in their own mind, they may say, look, I make $50 an hour with my work. 2 hours of work is $100 at my current rate. He's charging me $20 for 2 of those hours. That's a great deal. That's a good value. Yeah, you can do it. And my son is happy because he's 13 and $20 is a lot of money for him. So that's a valuable exchange on both ends. If my son rang that same doorbell and said, hey, can I mow your lawn for $6,000? That person on the other end would say, there is no chance that's a good deal for me. I'm not doing that, because that's way more hours of my work. So in that regard, you can effectively price and consider your business as an entrepreneur when you think about what you're doing for the customer. If you think that what you're doing will change that customer's life 10 times more than whatever they're paying you for, then you can charge whatever you need to charge. You can hire whoever you need to hire. You collect whatever income you need to collect, because guess what? Money in the hands of good people can do good things. Did you know that in the US, there's roughly, I'm not 100% on this, but roughly 180 million adults, 18 or older. If every 18 plus person in the US decided, I'm going to use $10 this year towards somebody else to brighten somebody else's day, that's nearly $2 billion being used in the service of other people to make their lives better. $2 billion by giving 10 a year. So I'm a believer that a faith-based entrepreneur with the right heart needs to earn a ton of income, because they can do a ton of good with that money. Because you and I both know that the U.S. is not giving $10 a year just to buy other people coffee or brighten people's days.
That's so good. I love that you shifted from money to value. And once you think about it, that exchange of value, it's a lot of mindset work and really thinking about the psychology of money. And for faith-based entrepreneurs, really the heart behind generosity and obedience. Matt, I know we're almost over. Please tell me a little bit about who you work with, a little bit about your company, so people can have an idea of, okay, what does Matt do? I love this, but what does he do?
Yeah, that's fair. The firm is Reconstructing Wealth. It's a registered investment advisory. That's industry language for an independent financial advisory firm. So we do what you would expect a financial advisor to do for you, help you build out a plan, help you with your investments, make sure your financial house is in order. Do you have the trusts in place? Your insurance is okay, all that. So that's what Reconstructing Wealth is. You can find me at reconstructingwealth.com. The majority of people I work with are really purpose-driven providers, typically entrepreneurial, typically high-capacity families that know that there's a big calling on their life and just want to make sure they're stewarding their money well. And if you like anything you've heard, my Instagram, like you said in the beginning, is just my name, at Matt Morizio. I am happy to share with you this 3-part video course I recorded. It's all free. It'll just cost an email address. It's a 3-part video series, maybe 8-minute long videos that really dive deep into some of the psychology around money and giving, some of the science. It also does some blocking and tackling of personal finance on like, how do I get my financial house started in the right order? If you just want to learn more and explore more, follow me on Instagram, send me a message to say you heard this podcast, and I'll send you the link to that video for free.
As we wind down the year and people are thinking, okay, what are my big goals for next year? I think before you get to your big goals for next year, sorting out that relationship with money and getting that in order so that you can really go for it next year, I think that would be a really good thing to do for everyone. And I think especially for entrepreneurs, for founders, it affects yourself, the people who work for you, the community that you're in, and it's a really great opportunity. So thank you so much for making that available, Matt. To the audience, thank you for listening. Yes. I appreciate you being here all the time, Matt. Thank you so much. I felt like we were in your kitchen and you were telling us everything that's been happening.
It's just my story, and I appreciate you having me to tell it.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.